Well, good morning and happy Valentine's Day, everyone. How you doing? This is Jeremiah. We are having a webinar on ribbons today. In case you're in the wrong room, this is what we are. We are recording this, so it will be available on the website later today for you to view over as many times as you want. I have a couple of housekeeping items here. Really primarily that Q&A button at the bottom for questions. Please, I would even recommend clicking that now. Get it situated on your screen, because notice you can see the answers for any questions that we type out to any other people. So it's just a great little companion for the webinar, but also makes it that much easier for you to type in a question without missing anything. I mentioned it's being recorded, and we are going to be talking about ribbons today. Yeah, about 10 years ago, it's a Microsoft invention. Microsoft came up with kind of what they felt this futuristic interface is, a sort of reimagined toolbar for the next millennium. And that's what a ribbon is. And Microsoft has, of course, embraced the ribbon in their Office products, even in Microsoft Paint. It's just exclusively a ribbon. It takes some getting used to, yes. But I think even with Paint, someone can pretty quickly go, you know what, this is a better interface. That a ribbon just simply offers more than toolbars. And so as we get to AutoCAD, well, heck, if you, like me, if you started back with AutoCAD 12 DOS, then you remember the screen menu, or maybe you even used tablet menus. And then we moved to Windows. We were like, yay, toolbars. Those little 16 by 16 toolbars. It is, believe me, as someone who's had to design toolbar buttons for 15 years, 16 by 16 is impossibly small to try to convey a concept. So the, 3 times the size of a ribbon button is just so much more real estate to be able to convey a very unusual concept like plant schedule or runtime summary or something like that. So it just works so well for the kinds of buttons that we need to define, and it really is just such a great improvement over toolbars. So hopefully I've warmed you up a little bit to it, because obviously it's what we're talking about, is you like toolbars and you feel like you're being forced to use ribbons and you don't like ribbons. And believe me, brother, I hear you. And we all have had the same reservations about ribbons, but hopefully this webinar will help you out a little bit with it, because you're gonna need to know how to tweak the ribbons a little to best match what you're used to and what you like. So enough of my yammer yammer. I hope I set everything up perfectly for Amanda. Hey Amanda, let's take it away here.
Yeah, thank you. I think you set it up great. So hello everybody. My name's Amanda Berry. We like to do webinars then on topics that we get a lot of ticket questions on. And this is actually probably one of the top ones, like Jer was explaining, a lot of people asking about this. So every year we look at the FX CAD and the Land FX ribbons ourselves, and based on feedback from all the tickets from you guys, mostly it's Jer, myself, Forrest, and Bennett, but also a lot of other people testing out. We think about what could help the new user experience in ribbons, and that's kind of how we go about things. So this is me, Amanda. I'm actually the one who goes through and makes a lot of the changes so into the CUIX and all of that stuff that we're going to go through today. So I'm going to take all the skills I've learned over the last few years and pass them off to you, and we're going to be going through all of these points that you see here. So let's get started right away. And first, let's get up to speed with the terminology I'll be using a lot of today. So obviously the first one, we're going to go through this entire interface up here, which is what we're going to look at customizing today. We've got our menu bars at the top. And if you don't see those, you can always type into your command line menu bar equals 1 and they'll appear. So just know that That's you sometimes sitting up here at the top. If you have FXCAD, we've turned it on by default. But those aren't ribbons, so we want to focus on the ribbons down here. If I go, the next spot then would be the ribbon tabs to focus on, and that's another term, the tabs. So I'm pointing at right now that home ribbon tab, and then of course all of this would be the home ribbon. Click on the tab, get the home ribbon. And inside each one of these tabs are panels. So this one happens to be the modify panel for this ribbon. And it's basically, a panel is an organization of similar tools. So we have tools for drawing, tools for modifying, tools for layers. You get the gist. And then below all of that, we're going to have the QAT, or Quick Access Toolbar. And in AutoCAD, this one's a bit more simple in just plain AutoCAD. In FXCAD, we added a few more tools to it. I actually go through and throughout the entire year when I'm drafting up plans for webinars or for power tips, anytime that I'm using a particular tool almost exclusively all the time while I'm drafting, I start making a mental note to add it to the Quick Access Toolbar for next year, because it might be a great tool that might not have an easy to access shortcut that would be great for in that Quick Access Toolbar. So you don't have to keep flipping between the ribbons all the time, because usually that's what you want to do while you're drafting. So when you're thinking about how you're going to organize all of these ribbons, you mostly want to think about the workflow of a person, and that they're going to be staying on a single ribbon for quite a long time and probably not flipping off to another ribbon. So you think of them as like little tasks that you're doing, organization of a certain point in your workflow for all of these ribbon tabs. And then, of course, inside each one of these panels, we have other organizing features for the panel for how things display in a ribbon. So in this case, this ribbon happens to have two sub-panels in here. And so those are big organization sub-panels like that. And then you can probably see where I'm going to go next, which is the rows inside those sub-panels. So rows and subpanels can actually be used very interchangeably. You can have a row within a subpanel, or you can have a subpanel within a row. So you can use those two tools to be able to organize how something is seen. For instance, in this case, what we did was this actually happens to be all one subpanel with 3 rows, but what I could have easily done is make this into 2 subpanels, each with 3 rows. And if I had done that, then this tool, and this tool would all line up perfectly over here. But I wanted to save some space and allow some room for this name right here. So I actually kept it as one subpanel and just had the 3 rows like that, so I could save just that tiny bit of real estate, which allowed me to fit a whole other button into this ribbon across the screen. So that's important things to think about as we're going through learning the terms, but also learning kind of how the ribbons are already structured. And if you look at the regular AutoCAD ribbons, you can kind of see the differences in how they've organized things. And then on all of these ribbons, inside the tabs, inside the panels, the subpanels, the rows, are different display options for all of the buttons that you're going to see. So in this case, this is just, I'm pointing out all of the instances where it's just one command, one straight up command, one button, and there's no drop downs, there's no flyouts, there's nothing. It's just you click that, that's your tool. And these are all looking a little bit different. We're going to go through that, but we also have some other types of elements on this particular ribbon. We have, actually, this is a very special one. This is the ribbon control element. It's a ribbon control element. And these are made by AutoCAD, and I haven't found a way to actually create them myself. So if you ever want to fly out like one of these, so this is layer color, layer or color, line type, line weight, line type, and this is the layer control element. You can't really create those. You have to go with the ones that are readily available in AutoCAD already. But just know that that's what that's called, because you need to know that in order to actually find it, in order to place it somewhere later on. And then everything else from what you see here are going to be drop downs, or specifically I'm using a type of drop down on almost all of these, which is called a split. And we'll go through those too as well. You can see there's different ways of displaying them as well. So here we have up at the top along here, I have terms of how these are all displayed. And at the bottom, just some examples of those drop downs. So here, I like to use this a lot. And like Jer was saying, you get a lot more real estate for the button to be a bit more descriptive in the image, as well as you get a bit more room to be able to actually tell somebody what that button is. So I really like this large with text vertical is one display option that you'll see a lot on the FX CAD ribbons. And then you'll also see a lot of this small with text. So that small button, a little less room. Sometimes it can be a little hard to tell them between each other. So I always like to have that text beside it. And then I kind of included this as an example just in this image, but if you are in FX CAD, you know that this actually is a small with text, but this is what a small without text would look like. And small without text actually happens to be the default for all of the quick access toolbar buttons. I don't believe that they can have text. So those are kind of your options in terms of how things display. There is an option for large with text horizontal. I never use it because it takes up way too much real estate on your ribbon. But that is an option that you can play with if you get into this. Then down here, of course, I talked about those drop downs. So I actually tend to only use splits, as it's a particular type of drop down. You'll see a bit later on all of those options. With this one happens to be a split with recent, and this one with static text, and then this one is a split with recent. So talking about the differences between those two, here's the difference. I have actually customized the name of this drop down to offset and then a line break join. And line break is actually a special character. We'll try and go through it later. It's a /n. And if you put that in, you'll get that line break in a command name on the ribbon. And no matter what, if I were to click on the join tool here in this example, the offset join would actually stay as the name because it's static text, but the image would change to the join image to show that that is the most recent tool used. And if you were to just click it without clicking this drop down, you would be able to use join next and keep using join until you drop it down and choose reverse, and then you keep using reverse. Split with recent does the same thing, but if this happened to be a small with text, because again, in the quick access toolbar, you can't have text. If this happened to be a small with text and say I had bring to front, it would say bring to front. But then if I chose this bring text to front, you would see that bring text to front icon, but then you would also see the text for bring text to front. So it would change. And the reason we went with the static text for everything in all of these ribbons is because without it, all of the names kept going in and out, in and out, in and out, because they were all different lengths. So it was really jumping around the ribbon. So these are really two great options to use, but usually split with recent, I go without text in the quick access toolbar, like you see here. So just some options, some terms. Going out of the ribbon then and into the customized user interface. This is where we're going to hang out a lot of today. And we're going to, while we're hanging out here, this is where you edit everything that we saw before in that ribbon. you're going to really get to know this place. So you can see a lot of your familiar terms are in here too that we went through already. So we've got the ribbon. If you drop that down, click that little plus button that's right here, it expands out to all of this. You've got your tabs, you've got your panels. They're all organized differently. And you've got your quick access toolbar up here. If you fly that out, you can see all the commands in there. And we have our menu bars in here. It's called menus in the CUI interface. And then we're going to be going through some custom CUIX files. And those are going to be down here under partial customization files. And then, of course, you have all of your commands. So you can search through your commands, you can grab them, and you can pull them into your panels, which then you pull your panels into your tabs, and you pull your tabs into your workspace. And that's how this is all organized. And if we kind of look at some of the other things, so up here under all customization files, if we drop that down, you can see all of the loaded .cuix files that are in your AutoCAD right now. In this case, it's including the acad.cuix, the custom office one, and our landeffects.cuix. And then down here, if we drop that down in the command list, you're going to see options for basically filtering to search a little faster for the command that you're going for. So for instance, we talked about those control elements. You can see toolbar control elements and ribbon control elements. You'll likely want to be using a lot of ribbon control elements. They're easier to find if you actually click on this and then search for what you're looking for, I find. Then if we go back up here, let's kind of drill it down into what we'll be doing. So I'm in my ACAD CUIX, which is my the ribbons that I use for AutoCAD. And I kind of drill down ribbons. So I click the plus button, it turns into a minus button, and that gets me my tabs and panels. I click on panels, and I'm starting to see all the panels that I have in this acad.cuix. And so first off, I kind of wanted to note something about how AutoCAD normally names their panels, and we do this at LandEffects as well. It's a really great panel name to say the tab that you intend to put the panel on, as well as your panel name itself after it with a dash in between. That's a great name for a panel because it already sets you up to be really organized, and if somebody else comes in and has to edit what you've done, it's really easy for them to be able to tell where things are, because in this panels, they're not all organized by tabs in here. It's just all the panels. And then inside this panel, if we keep going, we're going to see how this is all organized. So we talked about rows and we talked about subpanels. So now you can start to see, if we look at this panel preview over here, if you click on annotate text, you'll start to see this panel preview. Usually it might not show the images perfectly in the panel preview, but if you were to click OK after doing all this, you can see that this is what that panel in particular looks like. It's on the annotate ribbon, it's the text panel. You've got the first thing in here is going to be a row. So technically how this is all organized is that everything here is actually in row 1. So we've got a row 1 incorporating the entire ribbon, and all ribbons always start with a row 1. And then we've got a drop down. You can see it has a name, but then it drops down to more tools. So this happens to be a split with recent static text drop down, and you can see how that looks down here when it actually gets applied. And then we have another drop down, another split with recent static text tools. And I've actually added a /n in between on the name in order for it to filter to the next line like that. Otherwise, text tools, if I didn't have that /n, N as in November, If I didn't have that in between with no space, it would go all the way across if I just had text space tools. But I wanted to save some space, horizontal space on my ribbon, so I did that. And then what we have is a sub panel. So this over here is going to be a sub panel, which then has another row 1 and now a row 2 and a row 3. So we have a row 1, 2, 3 within a sub panel and 2 drop downs all within our first row 1. That's how all of these ribbons get organized. And so as we're kind of going through this, you can see how this all works and you can really play around. You could have other rows within subpanels. You can have a second subpanel. You can go to town. Usually you want to keep it pretty simple though. And I just wanted to point out one other thing was that even though we're all kind of going down the list here, so we have text and then we have text tools beside that, they're actually going horizontally along the row. And then we have our sub panel here, but then those rows will stack on top of each other in a sub panel. And then any commands inside that row, you can have drop downs or you can have commands. They will start stacking horizontally across as you go along. Okay, so one tip as we've gone through, we've learned all those terms. I do recommend maybe doing how I learned this too, is going through AutoCAD's acad.cuix, and you can even go through FXCAD's acad.cuix. If you don't have either of these, you can actually find them on our website, and look at how we've organized things to learn what kinds of patterns that you can go through. So for instance, I didn't talk about this panel dialog box launcher or this slide out at all, and that's because I don't use them. I've actually taken everything out from there, from how AutoCAD has it, because I find that they become black holes where nobody ever knows what the tools are inside of them because nobody ever clicks on them. So I just pulled those tools that were in those slide outs or the panel dialog box launcher and actually put them as buttons on the ribbon. I found that that was a lot more useful, especially for new users. So feel free to do the same. Or do it however you like. So I'm going to continue then with the elephant in the room that Jared kind of mentioned at the beginning. It's toolbars. And there's probably a few people in here who are here in this webinar because of toolbars and wondering how to get into the ribbon. And that's awesome that you're here. I will say that we are in a unique position here as an AutoCAD add-in software company to be able to step back, look at AutoCAD and all these facts that I have listed here and recognize that AutoCAD is phasing out the toolbars. So we want to prepare you guys. We've been very vocal that this is happening and just trying to be proactive and get everybody on board with documentation pages and webinars like today. So today is me giving you the tools to transition and grow. And so this new user-friendly approach, though, I understand it might not feel user-friendly to those who started in AutoCAD pre-2009, and that, yes, it's probably for new generation. And I do want to acknowledge that I personally might have been lucky then, graduating in 2009 and only starting with the toolbars for 3 years total before having to go cold turkey into ribbons. And that might have been easier than somebody who has been using the toolbars for 15 years. But I want to focus on the positive then, that you guys are going to be learning all these new skills today. You can do this. And you went from pens and straight edges to toolbars, so we're going to get the skills to transition from toolbars to ribbons. And yeah, definitely become masters at these ribbons and be able to do whatever we want with them because they do offer a lot more capability. So some reasons why you might want to customize. I've pretty much found these 3 main reasons. Obviously, you want to make things a bit more accessible, and you want to organize it, and you want to reduce the amount of time while you're in CAD, and finding tools can take time. You also you might want to add a custom macro command that you created, so a whole new command that isn't in AutoCAD before, and you want to kind of streamline a certain workflow that you do, and you can do that maybe through a macro command. That's totally something that you can do. And this example here, we're actually going to learn how to do that today. And then the third reason might be that you want to make a whole office-wide custom CUIX to make everything a lot easier for everybody in your company. And while we're going to learn a lot of the skills that are going to be necessary to do this, I'm not actually going to go through the process of creating that CUIX, but you will have all of the skills needed to jump into this after this webinar. And then here's a lot of what we're going to do today. And I wanted to talk about the kind of easiest to hardest in terms of trying to find commands in your workflow. And so obviously the easiest one, and I know it's kind of counter to what we're doing today, but don't customize. It would be the easiest. And I want to point that out because for instance, like I've had more than one user ask to request to have commands like pan and zoom in toolbars or the quick access toolbar. And for me, I'm like, well, you should be using the shortcut for that one. For pan and zoom, that happens to be the mouse wheel, but also for almost anything in the home ribbon, a lot of those commands, the user should be knowing that PL is polyline, M is move, or X is explode. Those memorizing those shortcut commands is really key, and it's always going to be faster than any button you can put anywhere. Small button or large button on the ribbon, doesn't matter. And also relying on the autocomplete. So instead of typing all the way to options, well, OP is the shortcut command, but kind of typing those things out for lay freeze or something like that, or to create a custom shortcut command yourself. So those are usually going to be faster methods to getting to a command than any sort of customization of the ribbon. So I wanted to point that out as when not to customize the ribbon. Then a very simple method, if you're doing a certain thing, like you're labeling a lot of plants right now, but you're kind of going back to some other ribbons, you can always drag a panel off the ribbon. So you can drag that plant label panel from the FX planting ribbon, drag it off, and just have it there floating while you go to other ribbons, and it will stay. So that's one option we're going to go through. The next one, I really like this one, is just adding a tool to the quick access toolbar. So you can either do that via right click, which we'll see, but there's some circumstances where right click won't work. So you will want to use the CUI command user interface that we're going to go through. Then of course, you can create a custom ribbon tab or panel. We're going to go through that. And you can technically, and I make this harder, you can customize a default ribbon, but I highly recommend against this. I really think you shouldn't be touching the acad.cuix or the landeffects.cuix yourself unless you want to do what we do, which is recustomize it every year. And because if you were to bring in an old acad.cuix or landeffects.cuix, it would have old tools. It wouldn't have any new tools. What's the point in upgrading CAD then? So if you want to customize some things, that's why I'm saying go to that custom ribbon. And of course, the hardest is going to be creating a custom tool because that involves a whole other skill set of learning how to do macros. I'm just going to do a very simple example of that, so you know how to create a tool. And of course, with most of the things on here, you're going to want to back up what you've done. We'll touch on that very briefly, but you are going to want to do that. Maybe you want to back it up for a rainy day if everything goes haywire and you lose it, or you want to share it with somebody else in your office. Okay, so let's get into CAD. Let's get to the fun stuff and try all of this out. Let's go down. Here we go. We are in FX CAD. If you have AutoCAD up, you can try this out too. You can kind of follow along. I'll try and go slow enough, but we do have to make a time for an hour. So the steps are all possible though in any version of CAD, including AutoCAD or even Civil 3D if you have that. So very quickly, of course, don't customize, learn shortcuts or create shortcuts. So obviously, we talked about some of the shortcuts you can do. go through and maybe even just start typing things on your keyboard to start memorizing them. To create your own shortcut, a lot of people have kind of done this sort of thing too. If we go to, I'm going to go to Manage, and I'm going to go to Edit Aliases, that command, Alias Editor. The command, if you need to find it, is that alias edit, and click on that. I am going to maybe do a new shortcut, and I will add, click add, and my command is going to be break. So we'll do break, and my alias, maybe I want that to be BR, something like that, and say okay. Oh, it's already being used by break, but that's how you do it. If I want to maybe change that to break at point, then you could change BR to break at point, because usually when I'm using break, I want to break at a point. So you can make choices like that in terms of your commands, and then that's all going to be saved into your acad.pgp file, which you can back that file up specifically, save it in a safe space, and share it around with all of your shortcut commands. Examples of what some other people have done have been, say, setting a shortcut command to the plant manager or the reference note manager, and that happens to be really quick as well. And you can find any of the commands if you want to set it to one of those. Just hover over any of these tools and you'll see that command listed at the bottom. So for the plant manager, that would be FX plant manager. And then of course, you can always drag a panel. So let's look at this. So this panel right here, this plant drafting, if I just click it and drag it down and let it go, I've now got a floating toolbar. And so I can put it up here. I can go off to site. I can start to do some things over here. I could start to do some things in maybe FX admin, or maybe I'm in planting and I want to bring down one of my FX admin things, like these general tools that have phatch and all that. So you can drag all of those down. And to put them back up, really, really simple. You just click this return panels to the ribbon button at the top, and they pop back up. Return panels to the ribbon, and that one popped back up into planting. They know where they live. Other things you can do here to maybe save some space and avoid having to go into customize is you can actually click this minimize to panel buttons. There's a few different options, but if you keep clicking this, it's going to change how this looks. So you can see how it kind of drops down from there. If I keep clicking, it changes to look like this. If I click on that, it pops out. And if I click it even further, it's even smaller. And I have to click it and it pops out in full. We're going to keep it up and top and full though. Oh, let's go back to one more click. There we go. Okay, so those are all of your options for avoiding customization when it's really not needed. However, sometimes you need to add something into here. So let's focus on the easiest method, which was adding to that quick access toolbar right here. So for instance, if I go over to my home ribbon, this is a great tool that we added at Land Effects. I really like it. Basically, you click a layer, it could be a block or an XREF, and it will open up a dialog. So if I just draw, it'll do it in this drawing too, but it will do it in an XREF as well. If I just click on that, I can go in here and actually change the color of layer 0 by clicking on that. I can change the line type. It tells me what object is, what layer it's on, all of that. So I really like that. I think I could use that a lot. So I might add that to my quick access toolbar, and I probably will for 2021. I'm going to right click on that because it's just a command. So you can only use this right click on just commands. Right click and click add to quick access toolbar. Just like that. There it is. So now I can click on that. I can click on my line and I get my X layer. However, if I try and do something like this isolate, so this is a drop down. It's a recent with static text, as you can see, as it's doing right there. The icon is changing, but the name is staying the same. And if I add that, so if I right click that and add it to the quick access toolbar, it actually adds itself as a drop-down split with recent still. Although, of course, quick access toolbar can't have text, so it doesn't have text. So I might actually want to split that out though. So I'm going to right click that and remove it. And we're going to do a different method for that. So here we go. We're going into the command user interface. So the shortcut for that, CUI, is the command. I always just type that in. I don't bother trying to, just like I mentioned, I don't bother trying to find that icon in any ribbon because I have that memorized. Here is that dialog that we've been talking about so much. Let's jump in. So here's my quick access toolbars. If I drop that down, here's the one I have in this drawing. I drop that down and I can see all of those commands. And I can actually, this is adjustable, so if you want to see more commands, anything like that. So let's go and find layer isolate and layer unisolate. So I'm going to search. I'm actually going to search for isolate. There we go. My Google search skills coming into play inside AutoCAD, choosing the right word to get the right results. So here we have layer isolate and layer unisolate. So I'm going to grab that one, isolate, pull it around and in. Oh, should have grabbed. Oh, it was just loading. I'm going too fast. Around and in. And I'm going to, you can see that line. I'm going to drop it at the bottom, and there it goes. And the reason I'm going around and in is because if I go up, it tends to scroll like that and can be a little finicky. So if you go around and in, you don't get that scrolling happening. And of course, this one has a funny name. If this happened to be a small with text, it would be a problem, and we'll go through that. But in this case, since it's in the quick access toolbar, even if I put it to small with text, it wouldn't show text. So I don't need to do anything like that with this. I'm going to click apply, and I'm going to click OK. And you can see those have added in as separate buttons here. So those are two ways, really quick ways to build up your quick access toolbar. And for the most part, that's probably all you'll need. If I want to go a bit further though, let's create that custom ribbon tab and panel. So I'm going to go back to CUI, CUIX, and I'm going to go into, let's see, I want to create a custom one. So I'm actually going to go over to here to partial customization files, drop that down, and here's a custom one that I'm going to use today. This is always installed inside AutoCAD, so you can just start using it, but we're going to talk about backing it up. And in this custom panel, I have a lot of custom CUIX. I have a lot of options. I can add more quick access toolbars, but we're focusing on ribbons. So I'm going to drop that down, and I'm going to look at my panels. And you can see I already started a panel right here. So if I drop that down and click on it, I can see a preview of what I kind of started. So that's an example of something you could do, you know. You could create a custom panel and start creating some custom commands like that. And you can see all of these happen to be, if I click on one of these, I can see the information loading into here. And this one happens to be a large with text vertical. It's just a command. It's just a whole bunch of commands. And they all lay out horizontally like that, all in just one row. Let's make another panel though. So I'm going to click on panels, and I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to click new panel. And I'm going to call this one my quick tools. Great. It always comes at the beginning with this panel dialog box launcher, row 1, and slide out your new panel. So I'm going to start with row 1, of course, and I'm going to start adding some tools. Let's go with, I am going to find my, maybe I want to add plot scale. I use that a lot for land effects, so I'm going to type scale. And here's a cool thing while you're searching for things, if it's a tool actually inside Land Effects, it'll have that as the source here. So that can be a great way of identifying, searching through a long list. So I'm going to grab that one, drag it around, drop it into row 1, and there, it's there, and you can start to see that preview. Let's grab another one. I'm going to add maybe some UCS tools. And again, I can kind of look for my land effects. I have a restore UCS, and I think I have a new UCS. There it is. So I can grab that one. I can put it into row 1. I can grab that one, and I'm going to put this into row 1. Great. And then maybe I want to put in some, maybe like an X copy. Sorry about that. X copy. There it is. And I could probably find X row too, but I'm going to stop there. And it actually popped it to the top, so I'm going to grab it because my mouse keeps hitting my cup. I'm going to grab it. We're going to drop it down to the bottom. Just reorder it, just like that. And then I might want to add in some, let's go with some dimensions. So I'm going to go with dimension. There we go. I can see all my land effects ones right there. So I'm going to grab a whole bunch of those. I'm going to go with the site ones though. There we go. Site, we'll go align dimension, pop that in. If I pop it at row 1 specifically, it will pop to the bottom of the list. Let's go with angular dimension. I want to do my arc dimension. I want to do all my dimensions in here in my quick tools that I like to use. Maybe a radius dimension. I'll put that right down below aligned. There we go. So I've got all those lined up. You can start to see the preview sorting itself out. Let's now affect how this is organized now that we have all of our tools in here. So I can go in here and let's say in terms of new UCS and restore UCS, maybe my plan is I want them all to be small buttons because I'm going to drag it down and make it a floating ribbon, but I want it to remain a small button so it doesn't take up too much space when it's floating down here. So I'm going to keep them all as small, but we're going to vary with small with text and without text just to see what you can do. And then I might want to combine these two into a drop down since they're very similar use together. So we'll do a split with recent and probably static text for that one. So I'm going to leave these, and again, the icons might look a little funny in this preview, but they'll look perfect out there. Let's go to plot scale. So this is pretty much all set up, and I'm going to leave this one as small without text because the icon is pretty descriptive. I'm pretty sure no matter what, I can always figure out what that is. It's a scale bar. But new UCS, while it's very descriptive, I might want some information with it. So I'm going to actually put that into a drop down. So let's go to click on row 1, and I'm going to right click it. And then I'm going to add a new drop down. You can see a lot of other options in here. You can play around with them, but we're just going to do this. And I'm going to call that one just UCS, very simple. And I'm going to grab it, click it, and then drag it up here to the top. And then I'm going to grab my new UCS and I'm going to pop it in, and my restore UCS and I'm going to pop it in. I'm going to pop that out. You can see how it's organized. I can click on this, and then I'm going to go to change that to instead of a drop-down menu with recent, I'm going to change that to a split with recent static text. And I'm going to change it to small with text like that. And of course, it will take on the image of the tools inside, so you don't need to do that. I might want to then, okay, so I have X copy here. I probably want that to be a small with text. So you can start to see how it's looking. I might want to put a separator in here to indicate that these are all kind of one thing. And I'll leave them all as without text, except for this one. I'll take that one at the end. And then I'm going to change this one to a small with text, but I don't want something that long. So I'm just going to indicate that these are all dimensions. And sometimes you have to click away and then back in to see the update. So with all of that, that's great. I want to start adding that in. So I need to be able to add it into my interface via a tab. So I need to make a new tab. I happen to have one in here that I already have kind of set up. So I'm just going to add this to make a new tab. You would, of course, right-click, make new tab. But I'm going to grab my quick tools and I am going to just drag it into this My Company tab. Great, so that's in here. Now we need to add it to our workspace. So I'm going to click on my workspace. I'm going to click Customize Workspace. And it will tell you all of the ribbon tabs that are already in here. But what's not in here is that My Company one. So I want to, it has a green box. I want to click it again and click it again to make sure it gets added. And then I click Done. And then Apply and OK to close. And it's just thinking, and there's My Company tab. So I can grab that one. And I have both of these. Of course, these are all small ones because I intended to drag that one down and have that one on the fly whenever I need. So I can just kind of pop it up here. It's a lot of nice small stuff with as much description as I want, which is fantastic. Okay, so we have a little bit of time left. Let's go into some more complex stuff. So I'm going to maybe create a custom tool. Let's go back to CUIX. And I'm going to add it to this custom ribbon that I've done. So I'm going to go with CUI. And here's how you make a new tool. And this is handy because, for instance, I had to do a lot of this when making sure that the tools would stay with the CUIX for ACAD while I was customizing FXCAD. I had to actually, you probably saw it in here, if I go back to that dimensions, you can see that a lot of those site dimensions have both ACAD and custom, or sorry, ACAD and land effects, and there's my custom one. It actually saved it into it, but I had to recreate some of these. So you might need to do this at some point. I'm actually going to create a new command, and from our example, you remember I wanted to do a polyline, but when it starts, it will automatically start with an arc and ask me for a direction for that arc. There isn't really anything that does that, so I'm going to make it. So I've got my command one. I'm going to rename that as, we'll call it polyline arc. Great. Give it a description, something like, let's see, I had it here. There we go. Something like that. Ask for a direction. Great. These are more advanced, but you can always add them in if you want. But then I'm going to just kind of copy in a macro that I've started here. I'll explain it. So the CC is to cancel out, make sure no other commands are running. The underscore is to make sure to use the English version of the command I'm about to use, because names can change in other versions of AutoCAD, like Spanish or French. The semicolon, or the colon, is there for an enter stroke. The backslash is for user input. And then it will automatically run A, enter, D, enter to input those options. So the way polyline works is you have to click a point. So you type polyline, you hit enter, then you click a point, and then you get your options. So that's what that backslash is for, is to allow the user to click a point. And then of course you want to choose an image. You want to give it an image to look like. You can choose one of these default ones. It's a bit more advanced to create your own. We're not going to go through that. We don't have time. I was going to choose one that was right up here, and I don't see it now. So we can basically choose just about anything. It's probably right in front of my face, but I'm not seeing it. Oh, there it is. That one looked like a polyline with an arc. I liked it. And then here's my trick. If I ever wanted a big option for that, I just get the 32 instead of trying to find the image. Anyway, so I'm going to, that one's good. I'm going to grab that one. I'm going to put it into my custom toolbar over here. So I'm going to go to ribbon, panels, my quick tools, my row one. Great. We'll add a separator because this is a totally new tool. And I'm going to add it into that row one. There we go. It's just going to be over here. And I could add text. I'm just going to leave it like that for now. And apply. And click OK. So with polyline, if I do PL, polyline, I would have to click, right? And then you get the straight line. And I have to hit A for arc. And I have to hit D for direction. And then I click a direction, and then I can start polylining. But now with my new tool, which is in, it went away because I was editing the CUIX. And I just click on that one. Now I click, and now it asks immediately for a direction. So I can do that. So that's a cool thing you can do. Start creating your own tools on your ribbon to do some of the things you do all the time a little bit faster. The last thing I want to kind of cover is backing up and restoring. So there are some built-in options with AutoCAD. For instance, you can click on the Start menu and you can go to AutoCAD, your version, and I'm in 2020. If you're in 2019, this will obviously say 2019. But you can export your settings right here. So you can go through that tool, and then later on, you'll get a file from it. It'll ask you to save it somewhere, and then you can import that file, and it will import it into your installation again. So that's really good for, I don't know, your computer craps out, and you get a new one, and you want to get all your old tools. Well, you happen to always run backups of your computer, because who doesn't really? And then you can just grab that file in that backup, import it into here, and you're good to go. Hardly any downtime. You just had to install CAD again. Or you might want to share this with other people in your office, this whole setup of where this toolbar is and how it's all oriented on your screen. That would be great to share around your office. Maybe you're a CAD manager and you're really into making sure everybody's using the best workspace. However, you can't use these two between versions. If we're in the future now and you have 2021, you would need to migrate from a previous release. But I really don't like this option myself because, like I said, if you were to bring this in, you're bringing in that acad.cuix and all of that has all of the old versions of the tools and probably none of the new tools that 2021 might have. So I don't like that personally. And in the case of this, if you just want to bring in a custom toolbar, then we can just bring in a custom toolbar. Let's look at that. So if I go my CUI here instead, and I look at that partial customization file right here, this custom one, I can right click on that. And I can do a save as, and I can save this as more than just custom. I can save it as something like my office ribbon CUIX or something like that. And then save that file in a spot where you're going to back that up. And then you can always restore. Under partial customization files, you can load a partial customization file in here, or also I believe through menu load. And then just load that CUIX directly into here. It will add it. It will add the tab and the panel and the ribbon and all that, and you can drag it down. That would be a much better option if you're bringing one of your custom ribbons from 2020 into 2021. That would be my recommendation. And I think that is actually everything that I had to go over. So this would be a great time if we had any questions that we wanted to go through, maybe clarifying something I went over, redoing something, or even asking a bit more about what we can do with ribbons.
Yeah, I don't see any questions yet. So come on, everyone, type them in if you got them. And I'm trying to think if I have any questions, and I'm blanking myself.
Well, I can always share some more. Let's see what
Well, you know what?
else.
What else
Yeah.
have we got? Yeah, go for
No,
it.
what can I do? I can talk about some of the reasoning behind why we customized some things the way we did so that you can get more ideas on how you might do it. Uh, so one reason that for instance, we did a lot of these. Oh, I didn't actually show you that -N. Let's do that with one of these. So maybe I'll go to the My Company. And you can see that instead of being create tabloid layout all the way along, it's just like this. So if I go to CUI and I go to my, yeah, it's under here, custom. Let's go to ribbon, panels. There's that one. And these are just dummy commands that I made. I didn't actually make these commands. I just made something for show. So they have actually no macros at all. But let's go with that create tabloid layout. So you can see it looks like there's no space in here. And if I kind of delete that, I hit backspace again, but nothing happened. And if I do that and click OK and kind of look around, it's going to look like that. So what I did was I just did a backspace so there's no space, and then a /n, just like that. Oh, sorry, \n. There we go. It disappears, the \n disappears, but that creates that a line break so that we can save some space, because I don't care. In here, we actually had a thing where you might not know, but I'm in a much smaller resolution for this video than I normally work in. I normally work in like 25 by 18 or something like 2500 by 18, and I'm in I think 19 something by 1080. And so we want to make sure that the ribbons always, all of these ribbons in particular, never reach the end in our webinars so that you can always see everything in the ribbons. So we make sure that all of them are always scrunched down to be able to fit into that space.
And we do have a great question from Daniel, and this is regarding the quick access toolbar. And he was just asking, as an example, if he wanted to get just the irrigation delete station command on the QAT, how would he go about doing that?
Yeah, so we covered that around the beginning, but that's a great one to recover. So in that case for delete station specifically, I go to delete station, I'd hover over it to get that drop down. And then I can see at the bottom of that drop down that the command for delete station is fx_delete station. So what I'm going to do is then, if I were to, of course, right click that, it would add the whole drop down into the quick access toolbar, but I just want delete station. So I'm going to go CUI. I'm going to go my quick access toolbars and kind of get that ready. And I'm going to find my delete station. There it is. And I'm going to drag it around and drop it into the end. There it is. And I can just click OK. And that's going to add delete station only into the quick access toolbar. And it even has that drop down still in the quick access toolbar. Great question.
Yeah, look at that. Well, I think that's taken us to the end here. So I hope this was good. Like always, reminding you that, like we said, these webinar ideas come from users. So if there's something you're particularly struggling with or would like better, or would like to see as a webinar subject, please, please, please let us know, because we always need those ideas. So we aren't just trying to think for you. We always worry, is someone going to want to see this? We don't know. But anyway, have a fantastic weekend, everybody, and see you next time.
See you guys. Have a good one.